All right, so I got the core support out of the car, laid it down on this box, and I'm trying to look at it here. I've got the fan shroud. The holes are pretty much, that's where the fan shroud's going to be. It's just I've got to drill new holes where it's a little bit closer. But look at the gap here. So this is going to be a huge air leak where it's going to lose suction on the bottom. So this is 4 times the size of the one up at the top. So I'm trying to get a game plan here on how the hell I'm supposed to fix this. I'm using a fan shroud, I don't know what brand it is. And then a radiator, it's a different brand. And then I'm using a factory GM core support. So I got 3 different branded products going on here, and that none of the 3 are working well together. So if I just put this back together, this summer when it gets really hot, if he gets in traffic or whatever, it's probably going to run a little warm or start getting overheated. So another reason why I despise mechanical fan stuff. So, golly. The only thing I can think of is maybe put some kind of rubber across this. I'll have to screw it to that metal fan shroud or something. That's going to look real cute. Alright, so I got my tote down that has all the kind of miscellaneous rubber stuff in here. And I don't really have anything in there wide enough, but I do have this right here. I don't even remember what this come out of. It's probably some kind of packing for something, but anyway, it looks like it's about 1/8 inch thick. And it's like a foam rubber type of stuff. It's pretty rough looking, but it's all I got. Actually doesn't look too bad on this lower part here. So I'm wondering if I can just cut some strips out with scissors and do a filler on that. And just let it go down there and touch that radiator. I don't think it's going to hurt that radiator because it's foam, you know. But that would help seal that up. I just don't know how I'm going to get it to stay. That fan's going to be pulling a suction, so this is another problem that, you know what I mean? That fan's going to be spinning, it's going to be pulling air, and it's probably going to try to pull them flaps in there, and over time it would probably pull the screws, pull that through the screws and just suck it right into the fan. Dang. What a nightmare. The only other thing I can think of is maybe taking a piece of sheet metal, cutting it to fit, and then bend it to contour that, and maybe plug weld it on the inside, maybe to where it comes down, and then I can put my bulb seal strip across the bottom of that metal to lay on there. That's probably going to be the best option. I don't know, man. This might work. It's just not going to be as durable, you know what I mean? Yeah. Another one of them dilemmas. I get to try to figure out what to do here. And it just takes time. Got to try to figure out what I'm going to do and make it work. That's all we need is a 60 over 327 cubic inch small block. That's a pretty rare engine to begin with, but it's already bored 60 over, so that's all we need is that thing to get hot. You know, that's not good, especially with them vintage double hump heads on there. Don't want to crack one of those from getting hot. So I'm afraid that fan is just gonna, when this gets hot from engine heat, it's gonna get softer. And I'm afraid the fan pulling suction is just going to pull that in. I'm going to make something out of metal, man. I don't have any steel sheet metal here, so I'm going to have to make a trip to go get some of that. That's the only thing I can think of. That is too big of a gap to leave open. That is gonna really kill the efficiency of that fan. Well, to be continued, I guess. All right, so I took these, had the radiator shroud, fan shroud off, and then its brackets that are bolted on, so I took them out. I drilled new holes further inboard just a little bit from the original holes. And anyway, I've stuck the shroud back on, and I just put 2 bolts on each side just to, you know, snug it down for mock-up. What I'm going to do now, it closed up this gap up here, still a little gap, but I'm putting that bulb seal on there so it'll look more professional. But anyway, now I can get a proper measurement from the bottom of this down pretty close to the radiator, and that way I can put a bulb seal on that steel. But I'm gonna have to go get a little small square of sheet metal at Tractor Supply, I guess. It doesn't need to be super thick stuff, but anyway, I can put a strip of steel, you know, bend it to where it contours at, and I want it to fit on the inside, because this has a lip that kind of rolls out a little bit. So I'm gonna put it on the inside, and I'll probably just drill holes in it and put nuts and bolts on it. That way I don't have to weld it, and then you have to go back and sand it, prime it, and then repaint it and all that kind of crap. So anyway, I'm going to put a steel insert in here that gets closer to the bottom of this radiator. And I'm really going to have to put a little notch in it for this transmission line. But anyway, I think that'll end up working out pretty good. And then I still got to figure out the top up there on putting in a, you know, some kind of a block off piece there. So it's kind of turned into a big mess. It has to look good up there. This down here doesn't have to look super fantastic, but up there it needs to look really nice, you know. That's where the, you know, when that hood's open, you're going to see that. And that's why I think this bulb seal, it's going to look real nice stuck up on there and, you know, up against that. But it'll close the gap up and it'll seal it somewhat. It's still going to have some openings on the side, but this right here is no bueno, man. So I've got that aluminum strip there that I think I'm going to try to bend up and put in here to take up the space. And the main reason is I can sand and polish one side of this, and it doesn't have to be perfection, but you know, it's got some scuff marks on it. But you know, I've been some 90s, drill some holes in it and drill and tap it basically, and it'll bolt on as a filler piece up in there. So when you look in here, you'll see polished aluminum coming up to close up this gap a little bit. So a little bit involved work here, but I think it'll end up working out in the end. It's definitely going to seal it up where it's a lot tighter, and it'll be more efficient to where that fan can pull more air. But I'm really nervous about getting a 60 over 327 hot. You know, I don't want that thing to get too hot. And bad things happen sometimes when engines overheat. All right, guys, went over to Tractor Supply. I got a 8-inch by 24-inch sheet of 22 gauge sheet metal, and this thing is roughly about 23 inches across, so that's kind of perfect for that. It's a little too wide, but you know, I'll have to trim it obviously. It's going to have to be pretty customized because the core is actually lower than the tank, so I'll have to put a notch in it. So it's going to be a little bit involved. So if I went in and cut that and bent it to fit it, you know, the shape and everything, if I went in and welded it, it'd mess up the paint. I'd have to go in and repaint the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is just drill holes and put nuts and bolts. So I got some stainless steel oval head Phillips screws here, and these are 3/4 long. I wanted 1/2 inch, but obviously they didn't have them, so I've got to deal with that, which I'll just trim them down. But anyway, I got some nylon lock nuts as well. So this is 1024 stuff that I got. But the other thing I needed at Tractor Supply was one of these, and they didn't have one. They were out. and it really frustrates me. So I have to use the one that I have for my wife's car, which is just sitting in the bedroom. You know, I don't need it right now. I need it for this deal to get this finished. Now, I could have got back in the truck and drove downtown and spent more time and more gas, you know, getting it. So anyway, I'll just have to replace this later. But this piece I'm going to put on the top up there. All right, so this is 1/8 inch by 3/4, and it's 3 foot long, and it's aluminum. So the beauty of this is I don't have to paint anything, or, you know, if I use steel, I'd have to go back and paint it. And the best part about it is I can actually kind of lightly sand this a little bit to get some of these scratches out of it, and then I can polish it, and it'll just kind of look like a part of the radiator at that point. But I'm going to put this strip in up here on top to close up that gap for that. And I'll put the bulb seal on it as well. But I'll have to bend the ends into 90-degree bends to go down here. And then what I'm going to do is drill and tap this so it'll fit in behind the bracket on the radiator. And then I'll just put some a nice stainless screw in there. But that'll work out pretty cool. But lots of work to do to this thing to make this fit. But it's just got to be done. The tighter this is sealed to this radiator, the more air it will pull through the front of it. So, you know, all these little areas, it's air leaks, and they need to be closed up. And, you know, it's pretty rare that you'd be able to seal every square inch of it. I mean, no doubt you could with lots of time, but I'm going to try to seal the majority of it. That way it just ensures that we get enough airflow through there to cool that 60 over 327 in 110-degree heat in the summer. Well, it's a little bit of a head scratcher, but it's going to work. So I cut off 2 pieces of that bulb stripping to, you know, use just to kind of get a height, I guess, off of that, or a depth. Anyway, it'll be something kind of like that. And I went ahead and cut it in half and tried doing a half, because trying to do the whole piece is just, it was too much and I was going to get it off. So decided to do half of it, and that should work out a little bit better. This coolant, trans coolant line fitting right here is what's really messing me up. This is going to need clearanced. So anyway, I've got a bend line right here, and I just kind of bent that up a little bit, because if I left it straight, it's got a gap on the side. So that kind of, I don't know, it's not going to completely seal, because it'd have to be very intricate to do all that. But this will get the majority of it doing it this way. See what I mean? It doesn't quite go even. Once I put that in there, it'll be a little bit of an angle on the ends right there. But that'll take up, it'll close up more space, bending the end up like that a little bit. So, all right, I'm going to cut another one of those. I'm going to trace this one out on another piece of poster board, and then go back and tape this one back in, and then get the other piece fit up in there, and then tape them together, and then take it out and transfer it to the steel. So I want this template to be as good as I can get it. That way there's no guesswork in this. Alright guys, I'm going to heat this up. I gotta heat up both ends, because I gotta bend this into a 90, and usually on aluminum, if you try to bend it whole, it'll just break. This is a kneeling. Good enough. All right, I drilled the flange out on both ends, 1 hole in each end, and I drilled and tapped these. I actually drilled those at the same time with a smaller drill bit. Then I went back and used the drill bit for the tap, and I tapped these 1032, and I've got some stainless steel Allen buttons with some little stainless lock washers, and I polished those on the polishing wheel, the buffing wheel. So basically this is going to be a filler panel. Now I sanded and buffed this. It's not 100% mint. It looks really awesome. But this tank is not fully, I mean, you can still kind of, it's got fingerprints on it from me, but you can kind of see where they didn't really get it minty either. So anyway, this is basically just a block off panel or a filler panel that'll go in here like that. And I think with it being polished like the tank, it'll kind of not be noticeable, but it will do what I need it to do, which is, you know, not let as much air escape from that fan shroud. So it's not going to be 100% sealed to the radiator. Just, you know, I'm just taking out a big gap so they can get a little bit more airflow through the fan shroud, I should say. I got some anti-seize globbed on there. So now I'm going to screw that on, and it's going to be, it's one of them deals where it's kind of hard to notice, because it just, with it polished, it looks like a mirror effect off of something. So I think it's going to kind of, I don't think it'll be that noticeable if there's a piece across there, but even if it is, it's still going to look like it's supposed to be that way. Just kind of a redneck block off plate, I guess. What do you guys think of my new workbench? Pretty sweet, huh? Yeah. You know, I joke about that, like my little workbench joke there. So I've pretty much had to work on the floor pretty much since I've been working on cars, because I've never had a big space to work on stuff, and I've never had a full-blown workbench. So it's just kind of the way it is, man. But my knees are calloused up so bad that like there was a piece of metal stuck in my knee last summer, And I didn't know it until I was taking a shower and I found it, felt it, and I couldn't get a hold of it. And my wife pulled it out and it was really long and I didn't even know it. So they're pretty tough. So anyway. Man, that looks cool, I think. So it's on there, the screws are tight, and I don't know, to me it's kind of not that noticeable from up here. It kind of looks like it's part of the radiator. So, you know, that's nice. I didn't then use steel and have to paint it or something. I used aluminum. So thank goodness they have them straps like that you can buy. But anyway, the way I've got this set up is I've got it, when I stuck it on there and measured everything out, set it up, it's touching this side edge of this radiator, which is not even touching the core. You can get, there's space under there. But anyway, I've got it touching this part, which is not, it's not part of the core, so you don't have to worry about it wearing through and getting into the core. And I've got it that way on both sides. It's touching that side flange. And this is how much core is out the bottom of that. So that's how far it is to the core. So this will never rub on the core if you're worried about that. But anyway, all it is a filler panel for when the core support's on. And I'm not really going to worry about completely sealing it to everything. The main reason is that's 3/4 of an inch wide, and before it was about an inch wide all the way across. So I'm not sure how far that is, but that's how big of an air leak that would have been. That would have been a lot of airflow loss for that fan trying to pull through that radiator. But I think that's pretty cool, man. It kind of sucks. My little block off panel looks better than the tanks on the radiator. So when I detail this car, when I get it all done, I plan on doing a real nice detail on the car before he comes and picks it up. I'll try to work on this a little bit more and try to get it a little bit more polished just on the car. But, you know, a little Mother's Magnet aluminum polish would go a long way. All right, man, I like it. So I put the bulb seal across that aluminum strap piece that I made that I bolted on there. So I pushed it on here. And anyway, that pretty much has it up against the core support top bar on that side, mostly. There is a cutout. You can see it right there. If you can see my fingers, it's a like half circle cutout there for the fan. And anyway, there's not really anything I can do about that, but I think that looks pretty nice. But this is what it looks like from the top side. So I've got the, I mean, you can see the edge of that bulb seal right here where it's slipped over that, and I think it looks kind of professional, man. I think it looks pretty good. But now I don't have a huge, you know, 1 inch wide air gap through there now, so I really dig that, man. And to me, with that piece being polished, it's almost like you can't really tell what's going on because of it being shiny. I think it just kind of disappeared a little bit, but it looks awesome. Looks like it's part of it. It actually looks like a polished fan shroud bolted to it from the top, so I think that's kind of cool. Now I've got to build the insert for the fan shroud at the bottom, and I've got the template laying there. I can't believe the amount of time that I can wrap up in one little bitty thing, man. It's insane. But I got to tell you guys, it really does worry me that the 327 is 60 overbore, and it's, you know, it's flat top pistons, and then on top of that it has 64cc double hump heads. So it's got some compression, and you know, this thing is going to run warmer than a bone stock 327, guaranteed. So I've got to take every precaution I can as to not fry that engine. But hopefully this works this summer. I'm sure it'll be fine this winter, but this summer is what I'm kind of worrying about. But He doesn't live in a big town, so him getting stuck in traffic for more than 10 or 15 minutes is that's probably out of the ordinary, you know what I mean? So he might not ever have any issues with it, but if he does get on a long road trip, I would be kind of curious as to what it does when you sit there and sit there and sit there and sit there. But in the summer, in the summer. That's the big deal, is the summer. Well, now I got to paint this insert, which means I got to take it back off and all that kind of stuff. But so that, and then I'll use my angle grinder with a 36 grit disc, and I'll work that piece of rubber right there on the end until it's even with the steel. But I had to step that down to clear the step in the where the core meets the tank. I think that looks pretty cool, man. That this should fit, but some trimming may be required. Well, I forgot I needed to put a bend in here. The transmission coolant line's right in the way. Dang it. I need to, no, I guess it's all right. It's up against that. I'm gonna have to round these corners a little bit. That's looking pretty good so far. I'm gonna have to relieve that somehow. All right, guys, so this thing is, it's pretty much done. Now I need to take it back apart. I've got to finish doing some metal work, smooth this up from my ball peen hammer marks. I need to smooth this out pretty good. I need to prep that piece. I need to get it painted. I need to paint the screw heads and then put it all back together, and I'm gonna make the screw heads go on this side so they'll go that way, because the studs aren't going to interfere with anything down here, especially after they're trimmed off a little bit. But I've got to round up some lock washers for that. I got a bulb seal cut to fit up here, so it just looks awesome. It looks amazing. It looks like a professional kit that was bought. No doubt this thing is going to be sealed up really, really well, especially after I go back in and trim this bulb seal off here, and I'm going to put a longer piece in here, so that'll take care of that. So I'll put another strip in. This is just a remnant, but I'll put a long strip in there and a long strip in there, and that'll further seal that up. But I mean, this thing is not 100% sealed, but I guarantee you this is going to pull a lot of air. So once I get the car to the point where it runs and I get it started and it's sitting there idling, I'll take a piece of tissue and I'll stick it up to the front of the radiator, and we'll see how much it's, you know, pulling up against it. But I can live with that, man. I've got a huge mess. This was an 8-hour day on this crap, man. I'm kind of tired of messing with it, but it's pretty much now, it's just down to the cosmetic stuff. And I'm just gonna smooth that area up that I worked with the ball peen for clearance for that tranny cooler line. I'm just going to smooth that up a little bit with a hammer and dolly just to make it a little bit cleaner looking. And I'm going to prep that metal out, and I'm just going to use some aerosol etching primer. I'll put about 3 coats on there. That way it has plenty on it. That stuff sticks really well, that SEM brand. And, you know, that way I don't have to mess with using a paint gun and cleaning the paint gun and all that kind of stuff. I just kind of shoot it and be done with it. But, yeah, it looks awesome. I love it. But Man, that was a big job that needed done right there, let me tell you. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this mess up, and then I got to go in and shower and then figure out what's for dinner. It is 6 o'clock p.m. already.